Hi Kirsty, here's the feedback on your paper 2 mock exam that you did recently. You scored 3 out of 4 for question 1. Jay Rayner didn't have good memories of his time in school, and the correct answer would have been he makes a joke to cover up his own real exam results. Moving on to question 2, where you're asked to write a summary of the differences between Eddie and Henry. You've done well with this. You've come up with some good differences between them. The good description of Eddie and his attitude towards his homework and his ability to do it easily. You've given some good quotes to back up your points as well. And then you've used a discourse marker on the contrary, and you've turned to talk about Henry. You've compared their attitudes. Henry seems to be very respectful, whereas Eddie mocks his dad and shows a lack of respect for him. But then you've not really gone any further with the descriptions of the differences with Henry. You've mentioned that he's seemingly begging to see his father, but you've not explained how that contrasts with anything with Eddie. You could have gone on to say that he's not seen his parent for 2 years, whereas Eddie sees him every day. And you could have pointed out that Henry is isolated and lonely at boarding school, whereas Eddie is at home with all the comforts of home and his friends and his family and good food, which he doesn't seem to appreciate, doesn't realise how lucky he is when compared to the situation that Henry's in. You could also have mentioned the fact that Henry's relationship seems quite distant and cold with his father, as his father is suspicious of his letter, what he's trying to do with the letter, whereas Eddie and his dad seem to have a fun relationship. They can have a laugh and a joke together. I think because you've not given too many examples from Henry's letter, your score has to be limited to level 2, because it says show some interpretation from one or both texts, attempt some inferences from one or both texts, whereas level 3 makes clear inferences from both texts. So because you've not given so much from the second text, it's limiting it to a level 2, and we'll give 4 marks for that one because you have given some appropriate references and you've done statements to show the differences between the texts. So had you gone into more detail about Henry, you could have scored more marks, and if you'd given some more inferences, as I mentioned previously, again that would have taken your score into a band 3. Not sure what happened with question 3, whether you ran out of time or whether you weren't sure what to do with it. But obviously you haven't attempted that question, so you've got no marks for that. So overall you've scored 7 out of 24, which, because it's your first attempt at doing this mock, it's not too bad of a score, and we've looked at ways that you can improve the questions that you answered, and then hopefully if you attempt to answer question 3 in the future, you will gain more marks with that as well. So there's everything still to play for, and keep up the good work. You're doing well.